are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So if you will actually just type in your question box that you can hear me okay, just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm receiving some messages that everyone can hear me okay. All right, great. So we will actually go ahead and get started with the webinar. So again, I would like to thank everyone for taking out their time uh, to actually sit in on this webinar, how graduate students can save thousands on tuition. And again, first I want to personally thank you for investing your valuable time to attend this webinar. I promise not to spend 15 to 20 minutes of your valuable time discussing my background and credentials. And actually, on my screen right now is a link to my actual bio. For those who may want to know who I am or my background, you can jot down this link and go there after this presentation. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and actually get started with this webinar. So the purpose of this webinar is to inform current or aspiring graduate students on how they can save thousands on their tuition. Topics covered include how early a person should start preparing for graduate school and the types of financial assistance that exist. So some of the things that we will cover this evening will be understanding the costs associated with graduate school, common misconceptions about scholarships and financial aid, examples of financial opportunities for graduate students, understanding student loans and forgiveness programs. And now I'd like to just briefly talk about costs associated with graduate school. It is important to note that the cost will vary depending on where you go to school, depending on also the types of programs that you're in. So I just wanted to briefly just go over some of the costs as it relates to some programs because it's extremely important that you know the cost when you're considering graduate school because this is how a lot of times people accumulate debt or additional debt that maybe they didn't know they would have or may not necessarily need. And so when you're comparing schools, it's important to look at which ones have the best programs for you along with the cost. So for example, on average, annual tuition at public colleges and universities total nearly $30,000, and at private schools is nearly $40,000. And this comes from Peterson.com 2014. The cost of online programs are significantly higher than brick and mortar programs. For example, Indiana University's Kelley Graduate School of Business is a top ranked business school. So again, when you're making a decision about where you're going to school and the cost, you do have to look at whether an online program will be best for you or the traditional brick and mortar programs because the online programs are significantly higher. And so, for example, the online division charges about $52,000 in tuition and fees for its online MBA program. Indiana residents will pay only $23,592 for the same classes online. Applicants who are not residents of Indiana also receive some savings. They're going to pay about $42,592 on campus to attend Kelley's graduate residential degree program in Bloomington, which is a savings of almost $10,000. And this comes from a site called GetEducated.com 2011. So again, you may see some variations in prices as you're comparing schools, but it is important to note that if you choose an online option, you're going to pay significantly more. So you have to look at the convenience of it, and compare to see if there may be programs in your area that would also offer those types of things. So even if it's school in your area and you decide to take the online option, again, make sure you look at the price tag of that. So here are some common misconceptions around scholarships and just graduate school any financial sources as it relates to graduate school in general. One of the misconceptions are that there are not many opportunities outside of loans for graduate students. Student loans are the only source of financial aid. That the same student loan rules that apply to undergraduate students apply for graduate students. And only apply for financial assistance when you need it. And it's important to have a graduate degree just in case you need it. Now, I'm going to actually address these misconceptions a little later on in the presentation. But I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the last one where it talks about it's important to have a graduate degree just in case you need it. Now, you're going to hear people who actually have different beliefs around why you should receive a graduate degree. So it is no disrespect to people that actually believe this, but I just have my own personal philosophy that if you're going to get a graduate degree, you need to understand why you're getting it. For example, if you know you need a graduate degree because maybe a promotion on the job depends on it, or your pay raise depends on it, then those are good reasons to pursue a graduate degree. There are people who love education, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but it comes with a very high price tag. So, for example, when I actually had to pursue my master's degree, well, I made a decision when I was an undergraduate student. I didn't have any plans on actually going to graduate school to get a master's degree. But what ended up happening, my background is sociology. So um, so at that time, when I looked at the jobs that were out there, really had to have a master's degree if you wanted to make any type of a decent salary. So in sociology, I had to go back to graduate school because with the types of skill set that you need to work in different places, even if you wanted to teach at the college level, you need advanced statistics, research methods, those types of things. Or if you wanted to work as a research associate, a statistician, there are just things that you don't learn at the undergraduate level. You learn some basic things, but in graduate school, you build on those things. So for me, it was important. So that also gave me the opportunity to be able to teach at the college level because I had that degree. And when I received my PhD, the reason why I went back for my PhD was because I was actually teaching at a university full time. And so the chairperson said, we're giving you benefits, you're full time. So basically, we need to have you in a graduate program, in a PhD program. So to be honest, that's why I actually went to pursue my PhD, because I was already teaching, and at that time I wanted to be able to keep the benefits that were being offered to me. So again, not a fancy story about why I went to graduate school, but I tell people when times get rough and it gets hard, you got to remember when you're going through that program why you're there, because that's what will sustain you. So I don't subscribe to the belief that you just have it just in case. Also, some people say that a pay raise doesn't always come with that. So know whether or not, sometimes people say I'm going to go back to school so I can make more money, but they haven't done the research to see whether or not they're going to actually make more money. So you have to look at, you have to really count up the cost. So when you're preparing for graduate school and financial assistance, it is extremely important to know your admissions requirements in advance. I tell people to start at least a year in advance, because there are a lot of things that you're going to need to understand. So whatever schools that you're interested in looking at, start looking at their admissions requirements way ahead of time. For example, one of the examples of admission requirements are the types of courses that you need. So if you know ahead of time the types of courses that you need, you won't be in a situation where you're ready to go to graduate school, but you don't have the proper courses. You can go ahead and take care of that. Then you have standardized courses like the GRE, the MCAT, the LSAT, and the GMAT. So, for example, just to give you a brief overview, the GRE, I like to tell people, is an advanced version of the SAT, in my opinion. So they, may have subject tests. They ask you about. They have a verbal section and things like that. So an analytical section, things like that. So it's more of those that have general degrees. The GRE may be required. The MCAT is for people going into the medical field. The LSAT is for people going to law school, and the GMAT is for people going into the field of business. So make sure when you're looking at the admission requirements for your school, make sure to see if you have to take one of those. And also, how much weight do they put on these? There are some schools where they just want you to take the GRE and you don't have to, um, they don't put much weight on it, as far as, okay, we're not going to let you in. And here's another true story. When I was going for my master's program, I was a great student, had a very high GPA, well rounded, but I always did poorly on standardized tests. It's like the SAT in high school, GRE. So the key is, when you, as I mentioned before, preparing early for this, it's important that you start way in advance, particularly if you um, don't do well on standardized tests. But even if you do well, you need to give yourself time to prepare. There are all kinds of study tools out there and resources. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to study a few months before it's time for you to submit all of your information for admission. So you want to give yourself time to practice these tests, whatever you have to take, find out again how much weight that they carry and things like that. Some people use the GRE just as sort of like a tiebreaker. I know when I went to graduate school, well, for my master's program, they looked at, they made decisions as it relates to who gets the assistantships in the department. And it just depends on how they use it. So, and then for my PhD program, they just needed to have it on file. So again, just make sure you understand that and give yourself time to really prepare for that. Essays, at this point, when you're talking about graduate school, it is extremely important that you're able to address whatever they tell you that they want you to write about. You want to make sure you address all of those points. You want to make sure that you have you talk about your professional experience, because now they want to know, okay, we know you want to come to our school for whatever degree, whatever graduate degree, but what do you bring to the table? So at this point, that's when you also highlight your professional experience. How will that enhance their program? How will that enhance your experience there? Any job experiences that you've had? Also, as I'm looking at, when we talk about essays, professional experiences and things like that, it's extremely important that you highlight your professional experiences. I'm sorry, can everybody hear me okay again? I received a little note saying my audio was lost. Just type if you can still hear me, because I hear some static. Okay, I think that's better. So again, as I was saying before, with essays, so it's important to really highlight your experiences. As I have professional experiences down here, it's important to highlight those things, because the faculty in the graduate program, now they're looking for not only students, but potential colleagues. So people that they can work with projects on. So graduate students, a lot of times, will publish research papers with their professors, do professional presentations, and even work with them as research assistants or teaching assistants. So that's extremely important. Now, someone may say, well, what if I don't have a lot of work experience? I'm coming straight from an undergraduate program. Well, this is where you take out the time to take advantage of opportunities, any volunteer opportunities. If you have an opportunity to participate in an internship. I know, again, as an undergraduate student, when I realized I needed to go to graduate school, I took advantage of different opportunities. Like, I spent 6 weeks at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm taking a special course on demographic research that basically deals with death rates, birth rates, different kinds of things that sociologists learn. And so that was an opportunity for me to participate in professional presentations, and again, a way for me to build my resume. So again, if you have paper competitions or opportunities to present, take advantage of any professional opportunity to build your resume. So just because you haven't had a lot of paid professional experiences, you still can create opportunities to have those experiences. Credible references is also important. So what do I mean by credible references? Well, it is extremely important to have your to have a good relationship with your professors, because you will need references from your professors. I always tell people to try to stay in contact with their professors and things like that, because sometimes I've heard of situations arising where all of the professors that a student had are now gone, have left the university, so they don't know how to get in contact with them. And so they really don't have access to their professor. So make sure if you can, keep an email address or outside of the university for a professor that'll give it to you in your master's and your PhD programs, because sometimes years pass before people decide to go back to school. So for whatever reason, they can't get in touch with their professors. So make sure that you always um, have some updated information on your professors. Hey, connect with them on social media if they're there, especially like places like LinkedIn. Also, if you have an employer, a lot of times, they may ask for references from your employer. And so, or if you participate in community activities. So these are the types of things at the graduate level, but definitely from your professors, because they want to know what's your work habit, how do you work well with others, do you work well independently? So that's extremely important. And as I'm always mentioning in my webinar, seek assistance from someone familiar with the process. This is a lot of information. So when you look at this list of things, when you're preparing for graduate school or financial assistance, it is important that you have all these things, because these play a part. Now, let's say for outside scholarship opportunities and things like that, um, you can pretty much, in some cases, overlook like your test scores. But again, all of these things play a part. At some point, you'll need a reference um, from someone, maybe leadership experiences. There are some, sources out there where they don't really care about your financial needs. You have to still like maybe write an essay, talk to them about why you need a scholarship. So these are the things that you want to make sure you have in place. So let's talk about paying for graduate school. So one example I always like to share with people is places of worship. So for example, I grew up United Methodist. I mentioned this before in past webinars. And so because I grew up United Methodist, I had an opportunity to take advantage of United Methodist scholarships that were offered. And so if you have a place of worship and maybe at the local level they don't have scholarships, you can always contact if they're a part of a larger conference or organization, you can contact them to see what kind of opportunities exist. So then you have fellowships and assistantships, and I have in parentheses research and teaching, because with fellowships and assistantships, and let me just break down what those are. Fellowships, sometimes you have opportunities where you can go and you can study or you can participate on certain projects with people, or maybe you get some money to conduct some research of a topic of your interest. And or like if you're teaching assistant, then you actually have the opportunity to get paid a stipend that takes care of your expenses, where you can do anything from maybe going to your professor's. If you're assigned a professor to assist, then you would actually go to class, take notes, hold office hours, see students. And I had the opportunity in grad school to have research and teaching assistantships. So when you're at the graduate level, there are also again like what we call fellowships and assistantships. Some of these come from within the university, but some come from outside organizations. So when you're listening to your professors talk about their interest, you want to make sure that you're able to connect with them if it's something that you're interested in. And some graduate programs now, they are asking you to discuss your areas of interest as it relates to research, because in some cases they're looking to see who they could possibly be a match. Again, it's not just about you getting a degree, but also what you can do for the department. So those are some examples. Places of employment. Let's say, for example, if you work at a place and they, for whatever reason, can't, let's say, give you financial assistance, you can, remind them there are employer benefits right now in the form of tax breaks. So the tax break or the deduction right now for employer tax breaks is like $5,250 from the IRS. So again, the company can get a tax break if they help you with school. Some companies, if you commit to them for a certain number of years in return for them helping you with, paying for your school or your graduate degree, they may, be willing to work with you or to help you out financially. Other things, try to negotiate alternatives such as time off, or time off for class, study, or travel. And this comes from Get Your Boss to Pay for College or Grad School. And this is from the U.S. News and Report 2015. Again, if you have the opportunity to participate in some internships, whether it's over the summer or during the school year, these are also opportunities. And if you're in a traditional brick and mortar, if you're on campus, I always tell people read the bulletin boards in your department and as well as in other departments, because there's some opportunities, financial opportunities, or what they call interdisciplinary. So it doesn't matter what your major is. Um, and so they will award opportunities like that. So make sure you read the bulletin boards. And again, not only in your department, but in other departments. And ask your professors and chairpersons of your department, sometimes simply asking, hey, do you know of any opportunity that exist? Fastweb.com is another good source. Sometimes it's overlooked by graduate students, but whether you're a high school student, undergraduate student, or graduate student, there are scholarship opportunities there for people at all levels of their education. So FastWeb is an excellent source. I've seen thousands of dollars in scholarship opportunities there for graduate students. So it's just important that you go to that site, you complete the profile, and it's important that you complete the entire profile, because what FastWeb will do is that it will take the information that you've given them to try to match the opportunities that exist for you. So that's like I said, that's an awesome site. You can set up email alerts, and you can have the information sent straight to your phone. And then when you're visiting the site, they have scholarships set up by deadlines. But like I said, they also have a list of scholarships where they keep the total updated of the scholarships that you're eligible to apply for. Also, use social media by asking if anyone is aware of scholarship opportunities. There are lots of people on social media, and so it is extremely important that use that to your advantage. You just never know. You just never know, just simply by asking. Also, check your school's financial aid and admissions website. So again, there are a lot of resources that people overlook. And again, depending on the school, like I said, some of them have the information on the financial aid website, and some have it on the admissions website. I've found thousands of dollars like that for students. And so make sure you don't overlook that. Internet search. I help people to strategically search for scholarships, because the internet, there's so much information out there, and you could really get lost in it. And so I show people how to strategically find that, but I also tell people to beware of businesses where they say for a certain fee, we can find you, we guarantee that you'll receive money. And so there's a big difference between saying, I can find money that you're eligible to apply for, versus we guarantee you'll get a scholarship or a grant. There are no guarantees in this process. So again, the more that you apply for, the more you increase your chances. But if someone promises you that they can get you a scholarship or something like that, beware. Also, professional organizations that you're a member of, local and national honor societies, fraternities, sororities, paper competitions, and scholarships. Again, so for example, if you're an honor student, then there are opportunities for you to become a part of honor societies. A lot of them have a membership fee. So if you decide, you think about the ones that may benefit you the most. A lot of times people form honor societies that are associated with their major. The benefit of being a part of these professional organizations is that you receive emails on job opportunities, scholarship opportunities, paper competitions, things like that. And paper competitions are basically, a lot of these societies will, for graduate students and sometimes undergraduate students, they may say, you have a paper on a certain topic, and so you can actually submit your paper for monetary awards. So, for example, I remember being in my master's program, I actually received $2,000 for a paper that I submitted during that time that I had written for a class. And so it was pretty much along the themes of the organization. Again, my background was sociology, so I submitted one of the papers for my classes. So again, you take advantage of paper competitions. If you're already writing papers, why not take a paper and tweak it, working with your professor to tweak your paper so that it's ready for paper competitions. And again, scholarships. So if you're a member of anything, check with them to see what kinds of opportunities exist. So now I'd like to talk about loans for a second. So at the graduate level, subsidized loans are not available to graduate students. Unsubsidized loans are available to graduate students, and this is when the borrower is responsible for the interest from the time the funds are given, so that the borrower is actually going to be responsible for the interest, and so that interest is applied to the outstanding balance. Loan limits do apply, so they will not award you everything that you need, but there is a limit, and that limit, can change from time to time. So, or over the years. So, for example, if you take out a loan for $10,000, and let's say, for an example, the interest you earn, let's say it accrues $1,000 in interest. Now, instead of your balance being 10,000, it's now $11,000. So that happens every year. So I tell people, if you take out an unsubsidized loan, it's best that if you have some money to put towards the interest, so that it doesn't balloon out of control. And also, there are tax deductions for student loan interest if you're paying it. So, like currently, the maximum amount that can be deducted is $2,500 for student loan interest, and income limits do apply. Graduate Plus loans, students can cover their entire out-of-pocket costs each year, including living expenses, via the Plus loan program. For other federal programs, borrowers must pass a credit check, and those with an accounting collections or bankruptcy may be denied. So it's important to understand that, going in what the criteria is. And so again, you get into some other issues, when you look at, so, you have to they take a look at your credit. Perkins loans, graduate students with limited financial resources may qualify. However, not all universities participate. So you need to make sure, if this is something you're interested in, that you make sure that your school participates. It's also important to note that interest rates on government loans are higher for graduate students, and these interest rates are based on the U.S. Treasury. So again, it is extremely important that you understand that. So again, you're going to pay a higher rate than if you were an undergraduate student. And so that goes back to one of those misconceptions that the same rules apply for undergraduate students and loans as they do for graduate students. That simply is not true. Private lenders, I always say stay away if possible, because unlike the government loans, private lenders don't have all of the programs that government loans have. So, for example, if you have fallen on hard times and you can't pay your student loan, there are income-based repayment plans. There are economic hardship programs. There are so many programs that exist with federal loans. So it is extremely important that you just understand your options. So private lenders want their money in life and death. Also, with most private lenders, your loan is not dischargeable in death. So unlike your government loans, which are dischargeable in death. So again, if you have to take out loans, try your best to stay away from private lenders, because there are no programs and things like with the government. I want to talk for a second about forgiveness programs. There are lots of forgiveness programs with federal student loans. I want to make a point, though, that if you've heard of lots of commercials and things with businesses that say, if you pay us a certain amount of money, we'll help you find forgiveness programs and see if you qualify. Well, you don't need to pay them to find out what kinds of forgiveness programs that you qualify for. All you need to do is contact your lender, especially if you have a government loan. So it is extremely important that if you want to know what you qualify for, again, contact your lender. There is no need for you to pay a fee to anyone to see what you qualify for. So just remember, always contact your lenders. And if someone, calls you and wants to discuss your student loans, usually it's not your lender. Lender is usually not going to call you, your student loan lender. So call your lender directly. If somebody calls and say they're from your student, your student loan, where you have your student loan at, I would call them back. I would just call them directly, because again, a lot of businesses are making money off of that, when again, it's just a simple phone call, and you can see all of the federal programs, or the forgiveness programs that currently exist on the Department of Education's website. But if nothing else, you can call your lender. So now I just want to talk for a few moments about student loan debt statistics for persons in graduate school, because again, a lot of times people don't realize how easy it is to accumulate debt. And so, for example, the median graduate school debt rose from $40,000 in 2004 to $57,000 in 2012. Those pursuing a Master of Business Administration degree borrowed $42,000 in 2012. Those pursuing Master of Arts degrees were $58,500 in debt in 2012. And this is from CNN Money 2014. So just as a recap, know why you have decided to pursue a graduate degree. Again, it is important to know why you're doing it, because if you're going to make a financial investment, then, and if you have to, my opinion is, well, not my opinion, but it's best if you can do it without pursuing debt, or at least a little debt. So know why you're doing it, so that you don't accumulate unnecessary debt or spend money that could have been used for something else. Start at least a year in advance in preparing for graduate school. Understand the types of financial opportunities that exist for graduate students. And as I mentioned before, we talked about fellowships, research assistantships, teaching assistantships. And you have scholarships that you can find through FastWeb. There are a lot of opportunities that people don't know about. Applying to graduate school and locating financial resources, again, can be a very time-consuming process. So as I mentioned before, be sure to reach out for help if you need it. So as a free offer, or as a free gift, I would like to offer you, for taking out time to attend this evening's webinar, I'd like to offer free consultation to the first person that emails me with this free consultation in the subject line. And this free consultation consists of discussing the steps that you need to take to be prepared in your pursuit of a graduate degree. And I'll show you my email address in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to just talk to you about some upcoming webinars for the month of July. I'll be doing one on There is Life After Student Loan Debt. So if you have accumulated student loan debt already, just want to encourage you that there is life after. I am a witness to this. So I'll be talking about, again, talking about the forgiveness programs, understanding your debt, how to get back on track financially, and things like that. And I'll also be discussing or presenting a webinar on You Do Not Need a Miracle to Improve Your Credit Score. All you need is a plan. Past webinars, if this is your first time on a webinar with me, I have some past webinars that I record. I actually record all of my webinars. So this evening's webinar will be available because it is being recorded, and I will email everyone that has registered the recording of this webinar. How to save thousands on college tuition for your child. That's actually geared towards parents who have 7th through 12th graders. I discuss why you should start as early as 7th grade, the types of scholarships that exist for children and young people at those ages, along with some other things, and how college students can save thousands on tuition. So that's geared towards current college students or students on their way to college in the fall. So covering some of those things that as it relates to student loans, again, the cost, giving examples of the types of scholarships and misconceptions and things like that. So feel free to email any questions that you have to me at AndreaJ@ANJConsultingServices.com, or feel free to call me at area code 336-476-4710. You can also visit the following page where I discuss issues around college planning, as well as you can download free information at Save Thousands, www.savethousandforcollege.com. Has student loan debt negatively impacted your credit score, or do you need help managing your debt? You can also visit the following site, www.anjcreditrepair.com. There you can look at the list of services that I offer as it relates to managing debt, credit repair, student loan debt, things like that. You can follow me on social media at A&J Consulting Services. At A&J Consulting on Twitter and on Facebook at A&J Consulting Services. So I just want to thank you for your time. And now, if you have any questions, feel free. You can either click on the hand, raise your hand, and I can answer your question. So again, I just want to thank you so much for your time and to hear this information. So feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions.